a world war. And it's not about who's got the most bullets. It's about who controls the information. What we see and hear, how we work, what we think. It's all about the information.
You want a war? You got a war. And there's no looking back. There's no forgetting. And there's no forgiving. I can see it all clearly now. The more we build, the more haters try to tear it down. The more we build. Now you listen to me. All of you. You hoodlums don't own these streets. We got a part market sees these.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. This is Covert Radio. And this is our premiere show of 2022. Now, you guys know me better than this. It's the anniversary. Remember? The violent overthrow of America. Guns and networks going up against the army. Overtook the cap. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, they didn't even have guns. That's right. I forgot about that. I didn't forget. No guns, no organization, no nothing. Simple march, whatever. Civilian got killed, and they're still to this day, they are using that as their Reichstag fire. Speaking of the Reichstag fire and how we burned in the camps later, thinking, what would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, whether he would have been uncertain if he would return alive, and maybe he had to say goodbye to his family. Or if during the periods of the mass arrest, as for example, in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, what if people had not simply sat there in their lairs, paling with terror at every bang of the downstairs door, and instead, they understood that they had nothing left to lose. And they had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of half a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, or whatever else was at hand. The organs would very quickly have suffered a shortage of officers and transport. And notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt if we didn't love freedom enough, and even more, we had no awareness of the real situation. We purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterward. Again, is an excerpt from the Gulag Archipelago from Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn. And if you don't understand how relevant that is right now today, then you're asleep. Literally asleep. And I'm talking about mentally asleep in a trance. Shut the televisions off for 2 days. listen to me. I've experienced this. I personally have been through this in the last few weeks. I purposely have been trying to act normal, and I'm going to watch TV, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have the TV on in every room. I literally feel like I'm asleep. I literally feel like I am asleep. There is something to be said about this trance that they're able to induce. And I've said this 1,000 times. If you watch little kids, put them in a room in front of a 60-inch high-def 4K, 5K, whatever it is, and turn on SpongeBob or LOL or whatever they're watching, within 3 to 5 minutes, their mouths will be gaping open, and they'll just be in a trance. And you could say, you could have a full sentence, and they will not hear you. Again, I've experienced this. I mean, again, why do you think TVs are so cheap? Do you think they, like, I don't know. I know you guys know this, but here's the problem, and this is where we're at. And again, I'm going to ride till the wheels fall off. I have no choice in this. I have no choice in it. And I just hope there's several of you guys that will continue to try and support Covert Radio or spread the message or spread the information, because literally that's the only thing that's going to save this at this point. Again, this isn't going to end. I've said this over and over for the last couple years. It isn't going to end. This is day number 675. And there's no end in sight. There's no end in sight. This is day 675. Ephesians 5:11. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. They have done all they can do. They've moved every chess piece into position. What do you think social media is? And, that's the thing. I don't know what I'm going to name this video yet. I shut my eyes and I see social media, except I'm going to have social, SOCIAL, all in caps, and then parentheses, IST, parentheses, media, all in caps, dash, conform or be silenced. Socialist media, conform or be silenced. I'm telling you guys, and I'm begging you, please do not become lucid. Do not become passive. And if you feel yourself becoming that, unplug. Unplug for a couple days. You cannot give in to their controlled fear and anxiety. I've coined a new term, and I hope that some of the psychologists that are coming out now, or doctors that are really, they're taking their own stance against this, because they listen, any intelligent person can see what's happening. And even if you're not that intelligent, if you know anything about history, you can see what's happening again. Only the names have changed. Maybe, possibly, only the, the race has changed. In World War II, there was a demographic target based on ethnicity. And in World War III, I would safely bet a lot that the white man is the new enemy. We're the scapegoats. Ain't that right? I got a new video coming up here soon. It's going to be like, them white tears taste good, cuh. Oh, yeah, them white tears be tasting good, cuh. Give me some of them white tears. But I have a new term. I'm calling it, and it might be I got to talk to a couple of my colleagues But, we may really try to get this as a diagnosis. I'm personally diagnosing a lot of people with this. It's called, and I'm calling it, and you've heard it here first. If you have any proof that any person has, if you have any proof that anybody has used this term yet, I want you to go ahead and put that proof right down in the comment section, right down on that video right here. If you know anybody that has used this term, TITANIC syndrome, I want you to put the proof in the comment section. TITANIC syndrome. TITANIC syndrome. That is what's destroying millions of people's minds right now. There's also another term that's come out recently, and we're going to talk about this for a few moments coming up. Let's see here. I don't want to mess it up. It is called the... Where do I have this at? It's that's one thing about Covert Radio. We, over the last 5-6 years or whatever, we have dove deep into psychology. We've talked about the effect of media on people, and how much of a hypnotic trance that people are really in. But here's the new term. It's called, let's see here. It was coined by Dr. Robert Malone. It's called mass formation psychosis. Mass formation psychosis. Okay. Covert Radio has coined the term TITANIC syndrome. Both of these we're going to get into, but I want to ask you guys a question first. Number one, let me give a shout out or two or Trey. I want to give a shout out to LINDZ. Yo, what up, cuh? What's up, cuh? I also want to give a shout out to the Hammer. The Hammer knows who the Hammer is. Yo, what up, cuh? What's up, cuh? And last but not least, I want to give a big shout out to my big homie. Let me try that again. I want to give a big shout out to my big homie.
Naslo.
What's that you said?
Naslo.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, ooh. Which I know for a fact that he right now, I mean, this dude don't sleep. You know what I mean? He's up at 28, 30, sometimes 35 hours at a time. He also has a special diagnosis, but we're not going to get into it because, it's his own personal information. But I guarantee you right now, he is in his bathroom, standing in front of the mirror, and he's practicing throwing up his L's and J's. Now, this doesn't seem like a problem, but when the guy's been doing this for about 15 years straight, because, and he tells me, he's like, Covert Radio, I don't ever know when I'm going to need my L's and J's. I don't know. I got to be ready. They've got to be perfect. Okay. So I'll give a shout out to Nos Lil. And I'm asking you guys, please, to share this. I'm not going to try to make this long. Again, this is the first show of 2022. It is the anniversary of the violent and bloody insurgency and the overthrow of the American government, even though only one person was murdered that day who was a civilian. And there was no organization. There was no mass weapons. There was no nothing. But if you rewind to my shows around that time, I stressed and I kept saying, please listen to what they're doing. Please listen to the words they're using. This is to create the illusion of what's coming. And I harped on the word insurgency. And It's their Reichstag fire is what it is. Again, only the targets have changed. Some people might even believe this is payback for the people that are currently in control, the ones who control the media, the banking system, whatever, which is what controls people at the end of the day, media and banking, money and media and money. You got to look at who the puppeteers are and then look at who the targets are. Rewind 70, 80 years ago to the 1930s and 40s. Look at who was in control. Look at who the puppeteers were and look who the targets were. So, only the names have changed and the names of the events maybe have changed, but the process is the exact same. Almost. Again, if you don't know history, if you don't know anything, about World War II or even prior to that, you probably feel like this is all brand new. But to any of us who know, this is just unbelievable that so many people are actually falling for it. The other question I wanted to ask you guys is, how was your holidays? Tell Uncle Covert Radio all about it. Before you answer that question, let me tell any new listeners that may have made it this far, 5 minutes or so, I don't know where we're at. This is talk radio format. This is something you turn on and you drive to work listening to, or you turn on and you work on your crafts, or you work on whatever, you clean the house, you're in your garage, you're working on a car, you're doing something. Maybe you do crafts. Maybe you do floral arrangements. I don't know if you guys heard that. I'm trying to dial in my my new compressor here, and those types of sounds shouldn't be heard. You may not have heard it, but it was a massive truck that just went blowing past here, and I'm like 3 levels up, so I don't know. Yeah, but this is talk radio format. This is just something you turn on, go about your business. There are going to be a few things in this video that we're going to take a look at, and I will tell you, say, hey, take a look at your screen. But other than that, just plug me in, turn on the Bluetooth, whatever you got to do, turn it up and relax. Okay. We're going to go over some pivotal information. This is critical information. This is not, entertainment per se. This is infotainment, I guess you could call it. I'm not so much here to entertain you. Again, this is what I'm talking about. There's too much entertainment. The Romans called it bread and circus. Please do not become lucid and passive. Please do not do that anymore. You can't. It's purposely dialed up. The 80s movies, the this, the that, these are all triggers in our minds of a good time. And again, I'm calling this the Titanic Syndrome. That is what's happening to people. But again, back to this. How was your holidays? Let me ask you this. So have you now learned which relatives are split from your basic family, from your core family? Maybe it's only you. Are you now starting to realize the power of this propaganda and this machine and the repetitive 675 days of gaslighting? Do this. No, don't do that. Do this. Do 2 of those. No, don't do that. That doesn't work. They're still gaslighting, and I'm going to prove it to you in a few minutes here. It's just like the weather. And this is how they trained a lot of people to not believe what they hear. But either way, it's gaslighting. But have you learned that you are either the black sheep of your family, that you're the ones that listen, I over the last couple weeks, I've heard so many talking points that I literally almost went outside to vomit. Families are being split. They're being split. And what's happening is we're all being trained on socialist media and now in your families and your personal life, we're all being trained of what you can and cannot talk about, or maybe what you should and should not talk about. What's there to talk about? I mean, because even sports anymore have been politicized. Politics are politicized. Privacy is politicized. Health is politicized. It's all become wielding weapons. There are no safe topics this year. So why don't you tell me in the comments section what topics you've learned not to discuss with your family this year, your own family. Are you learning yet? Are you understanding? Do you think this is the first? This is not the first time that this has happened. You know, I talk about World War II a lot. I talk about the Nazis. I talk about Germany. I talk about Russia. I again read you guys a snippet from the Gulag Archipelago a few moments ago. And I'm going to tell you something. When the Nazis in the 30s, in the early 30s, when they were consolidating power, and see, here's another trigger word that they use that's being used today. I overheard it while my wife was watching Dr. Phil today. Some woman was babbling about my son or daughter's going to be a global citizen, a good global citizen. They were talking about CRT, which I've not even touched that subject yet. I have so much information coming up for you guys. But she kept harping about my child's going to be a global citizen, a global citizen. Guess who else used that terminology? The Nazis. National citizen, national citizen. You know, this is where nationalism comes from. But, you know, what's happened is they're taking all of this information and tactics and they've turned it into their own weapon. They've turned it into their weapon now. Because when the Nazis first came into power, when they were, you know, in the early 30s or whatever, and we could talk about Goebbels, we could, you know, whatever. The big thing for them was controlling dissent. They had to suppress dissent. They had to silence people. And in 1933, the Nazis issued a decree. And it required the German citizens to turn in anyone who spoke against the party, who spoke against the regime, the leaders, the government. There was a law. It was a decree. They had to continue to, and it got way worse than that. Remember Janet Yellen or whatever? See something, say something. See something, say something. That is identical to the Nazis. Identical. The only difference is it was a law with them. It was a national decree. And the decree was named the defense, or for the defense against malicious attacks against the government. Malicious attacks against the government. Malicious attacks against the government. Here we are, January 6th. Here we are, January 6th, right? And it was all misconstrued and discombobulated about whoever purposely makes comments or statements that are of factual nature that were grossly exaggerated or can cause harm to the party or the leaders or the Reich. These people will be punished. You know, this is also what the Nazi youth did. This is when the parents became afraid of their children. And this is when they became afraid to speak freely in front of their children. And here we are today with the FBI getting watch list of parents who speak out in school board meetings. They didn't stop there with decrees or laws. They created special courts for people who were accused of malicious attacks against the Reich. Like I said, at first it was a decree, then it became a law. And they criminalized malicious, rabble-rousing attacks and remarks and, statements that are against the base mentality, the hive mind of the Nazis. Anybody in the Nazi party, any high-ranking government official, anybody, you say anything about them, you're going to be dragged into court, and you're either going to be sent to a prison camp, or you're going to be fined. You can go to an internment camp. I mean, there was a lot of options. There was a guy that wrote a book. His name was Alphonse Heck, and he was a member of the Hitler Youth. And he told a story that happened late in the 30s, early 40s. He was living with his grandparents, and his dad came to visit at the grandparents' house. And what happened was his dad was drinking a little bit or whatever, and he started railing against the regime, the Nazis, in front of his son, in front of Alphonse. And because his dad wasn't a drinker or whatever, but this was like like the holidays when your family comes over, he had a few too many drinks, and he just basically went off. And one of his exact quotes was that Alphonse Heck stated, that his dad said, he said, "You mark my words, that goddamned Australian house painter," which he's talking about Hitler, who was an artist, a painter, whatever. He's a failed artist, actually, is what people had said. I mean, if you see some of his artwork, I don't see how he failed, but whatever. That's the thing about art. It's beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But he said that Austrian house painter is going to kill us all before he's through with his, him conquering the world. And then he looked at Alphonse, who's wearing his Hitler Youth uniform. Just like Obama wanted to have the civilian army. We need a civilian army that's just as strong, just as capable. But he looked at Alphonse, his son, and he said, "And they're going to bury you in that damned monkey suit that you so proudly wear." Which was 100% true. All of that came true. His dad was right. But if this kid would have went, and because he was supposed to, it was the law. And that's how he was trained. Hitler got him young. That's why they get him young. This history is literally repeating itself. But if he would have reported his dad saying this stuff, his dad would have been taken to a concentration camp. 100%. 100%. So do you understand what's happening? This is not going to stop. It's not going to stop. The only thing that can stop this is if you can, you have to make an effort. I kept telling you guys, you're not going to be able to set this one out. You will not be able to sit this one out unless you have TITANIC syndrome. Because you think everything's okay. You put on the Karate Kid or some Elf Christmas movies and all this stuff, and everything's streaming, and you have a billion things to watch. You have 100 different podcasts. You have 20,000 different YouTube videos every minute being uploaded. You have tons of movies on Netflix and Hulu and this one and that one and Discovery Plus, HBO Max, la 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 la. Do not think for yourself. Do not reflect on yourself and your family and your decisions. Do not research anything. And while you do that, you're on the Titanic, you're eating lobster, you're by the fireplace. The ship is literally sinking. Again, this is 1 year anniversary of the overthrow of the American government. Some of those people, a lot of them, are still in jail and they're still waiting to be heard. They have no real representation. People have been maimed in prison. There's so many things that has happened to these people. And it's just, it's on to the next movie. It's on to 1,000-Pound Sisters. And then this one. Like, wake up. Because the only way this is going to stop is if we are able to share information, and I'm gonna again prove to you how psychotic what's happening right now, how psychotic it actually is, and how much it doesn't make sense. Similarly, while not only is the ship sinking, the economy is sinking. There's businesses being boarded up by the tens of thousands every day. Now the big chains are shutting down. 100 stores here, 100 stores there. We're going to get into that in a second. But it's very similar to what the Nazis were doing back in whatever. I think it was, again, the early 30s, mid 30s. After the Great Depression, there was all these promises about work, and that's when Hitler came up with the Autobahn, and they did it. I mean, he put thousands and thousands and thousands of Germans back to work, making money, working on the infrastructure. The Autobahn still to this day is a fantastic feat that they were. And think of the 30s, like barely a steam engine here and there. So the amount of manpower it took to do what they did. I guess too, that could also be a distraction, but either way, that's what they were doing. They were focusing on getting people back to work, getting the economy, back in check. But what they were doing as a distraction from what putting people to work was a distraction from their actual goal, which was unleashing attacks on any of their opposition. This is when the war plans were really getting started. The second Hitler became chancellor, it was the same day. It was in February of 1933. All of a sudden, the alarms, bing, 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 the alarms. There's the Reichstag fire. And it destroyed the building's main chamber. It is known today that the Nazis themselves set that fire. It was a self-inflicted wound. Self-inflicted wound. Self-inflicted wound. Self-inflicted wound. Like so many we've had. 2 major ones I know in my lifetime. 911 3 what? 03 313 what? Within 20 minutes of the Reichstag fire, 20 minutes, Hitler showed up at the Reichstag and he said, and I quote, "This is a God-given signal. If this fire, as I believe, turns out to be the handiwork of the communists, then there is nothing that shall stop us now from crushing out this murderous pest with an iron fist." Within 20 minutes of the fire, they set the fire. They already had the narrative. They already had the speech written. And immediately, see, back then, with nationalism and what Hitler was trying to accomplish, Communism was the enemy. And a lot of people looked at Trump, like Hitler, who was a nationalist and trying to put America first again and trying to, make the tariffs more even, the import exports more even, trying to, get jobs and factories to stay in the country. Nationalism. Communism is always the enemy of that. So back then, communism was the enemy. The self-inflicted wound of the Reichstag fire was blamed on communists. Except now, on January 6th of 2020, our Reichstag fire. And I say that because, again, a lot of stuff that has come out in the court hearings, the several that they've had so far, the FBI's involvement in it, there was heads of the, just don't even get me started. I mean, if you look at all the footage, there's like cops pointing this way, waving, come on this way. The same guys are here and they're there and they're there, and they know their routes all through the Capitol. I mean, I've been in this country since day one, and I don't know my way around the Capitol or the Capitol Dome or Congress. I have no clue. I would have no clue what doors to go through. But they were all led here, go there, now you go there, up these steps, go left, here. So, there's a lot of information that has come out that this was a self-inflicted wound. And, but this time it's being done by communists, in my opinion. Again, the enemy of nationalism and America first are communists. So what they did is immediately, like I said, after the Reichstag, they already had the laws written up. They already had the speeches written up. They had everything ready to go. The barbed wire to surround the Capitol. Oh, I mean, that happened here. I'm sorry. But within days, the Nazis threw 4,000 communists and their leaders into quickly created prisons and concentration camps. Within several days, a few days of the Reichstag fire, the Nazis put over 4,000 communists in concentration camps. So how in just a few days could, and I mean, we're talking like 1930 technology, pencil and paper. They already knew what 4,000 communists to round up. They already had the concentration camps built. So again, the Reichstag was in February, late February, I think 27th, 28th, somewhere in there. By the end of March, 1 month later, by the end of March, there have been 20,000 communists arrested. By the end of the summer, which was just a few months later, over 100,000 communists and social democrats, and, their leaders too, were imprisoned. None of them, not one of them, were responsible for the fire. So again, this was a self-inflicted wound. They used it as a means to their own agenda to remove their political enemies of their vision of, the forces that were stopping Germany from becoming a nationalist country. They went and arrested over 100,000 communists and put them in concentration camps. And that is exactly what's happening now. I'm telling you, you better wake up and you better turn the TV off and you better really try to understand what's happening. I'm going to play something for you guys, and I really, 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 really want you to pay attention to this, and I want you to share it. Okay, here we go.
Glenn McGregor, CTV News. Prime Minister, there's still a significant population in Canada that's refusing to get vaccinated despite all the things you've done, travel restrictions, vaccine mandates, you coming out here at press conferences imploring them to get their shots. In France, they're bringing in new measures with what President Macron calls his intent to piss them off. Wondering what you were going to do that you haven't tried already to reach these people who are continuing to clog up the ICUs.
Well, I think first of all, we do have to recognize that the vast majority of Canadians have stepped up, have been there to get themselves vaccinated, to protect their loved ones, to protect frontline health workers. And that is significant. We're amongst the top countries in the world in terms of citizens stepping forward to do the right thing. So it's not just about governments and health workers frustrated that there are Canadians who still continue to choose to not get vaccinated. It's fellow Canadians as well. When people are seeing cancer treatments and elective surgeries put off because beds are filled with people who chose not to get vaccinated, they're frustrated. When people see that we're in lockdowns or serious public health restrictions right now because the risk posed to all of us by unvaccinated people, people get angry. And we have put forward many, many different measures to encourage, to reassure, to incentivize, to educate, to cajole, to remind people that it's never too late to do the right thing.
And it's never going to end. Look at the smirk. Look at the smile.
Just to encourage, to reassure, to incentivize, to educate, to cajole, to remind people that it's never too late to do the right thing. It's never too late to go and get your first dose of vaccine. I can tell you that that frontline health worker who's giving you your first dose of the vaccine, even now in January 2022, will be immensely pleased to be able to give you that first dose of vaccine even today.
Like, you know that? I know some frontline workers. They don't say that. I'm just telling you the ones I know don't say that, Mr. Trudeau. But I'm sure you're right. You're probably right. Yeah. Now, are these the ones that have been fired? You know, these same people that were heroes in making TikTok videos, and they were, you know, the savers of the planet. These same people were fired, and they were told get out. You know, are those ones, or are these new ones, or these ones that have been replaced by them? Like, I don't know. I'm just saying. But he says he knows that he's positive that they will be more than grateful for you to just do what we tell you. And we're going to keep saying it. We're going to say it 1,000 different ways. And we're going to say it 30,000 times a day. We have the smartest people in the world at Tavistock and Harvard. And, you know, they just keep coming up with good ways for us to tell you what you're going to do. Because if you don't, you see all the damage you're causing? Do you see that the stores aren't opening because of you? It's your fault that the hospitals are just over-flooded because of you. And we're going to deal with you. You want to set fire to our Reichstag. You want to set fire to destroy the good German chancellor's main office as a hit against the bow of the nationalists who just want the good for the German people. You think we're going to take this lying down? You're the enemy. And we're going to continue to tell people that. And eventually they're going to believe that because of the mass psychosis. Mass formation psychosis. no one can make informed decisions because no one can get all of the information. We control the information. We tell you what the truth is. Socialist media is a hub of truth. And we're going to make sure it is, because anybody else who has an opposing opinion is silenced, and you're never going to hear them. Just like the post you put on Facebook that you wonder why you only have 1 or 2 thumbs up, or maybe a comment, maybe no comment, because nobody is seeing it. That's like when you go to YouTube and you see, oh, this video. Oh, yeah, great. I mean, there, man, look at all these people. Nobody else is seeing it. You're in an algorithmic prison. Only you and people like you are seeing this. The vast majority of people who need to see this are not seeing it. What's happening with them is their algorithmic prison is just constantly reinforcing the mass formation psychosis. Which mass psychosis theory was created and discovered by Dr. Matthias Desmond. And there's another doctor named Dr. Robert Malone who learned a lot from Dr. Desmond, and he came up with a diagnosis of mass formation psychosis. And again, this is nothing new for Covert Radio. We've talked ad nauseum for 5+ years about groupthink and mass hypnosis and hours and hours and hours of information and conversation on Covert Radio. And it dealt with Sotomayor and this one and that one and all these, clowns that use these techniques to control people's perception. It's the exact same. It's the exact same. When people say mass formation, it's basically the equivalent of crowd formation. Again, groupthink, crowd psychosis, they're all very, very similar. But there is a difference in this diagnosis here, this condition. There's a setup, there's a prelude to mass formation psychosis. And one of the key elements in setting it up is the lack of social connectedness. There has to be isolation. You can see the last 2 years, the last 675 days, how important that is constantly being reinforced. And there are tons and tons and tons of latent anxiety and passive aggression. These are key elements in setting up mass formation psychosis. When people are inundated with the narrative, it could be whatever narrative, and I'm not talking about a specific thing, really, wink, but hey, when you're inundated with a narrative that does nothing but create anxiety, the strategy that people come up with coping with that type of anxiety is grouping together to battle this anxiety. That's why I'm telling you, and I've said this for over 5 years. I've talked about the algorithmic cells, the prisons that we are all individually in. And it's reinforced. Collective single-mindedness is consistently reinforced. And what happens is people don't focus on their own problems. They tend to avoid their own mental anguish. Instead, they focus all their thought and energy on this new object, this new threat, this new, herd of elephants that's coming across the Sahara. Mass formation progresses as it continues and goes. The group becomes increasingly bonded and connected. They're allowed to speak freely on Twitter. They're allowed to speak freely on Facebook. They're allowed to freely share their information that will find its way into your algorithmic prison cell, but it doesn't go the other way. So this is reinforced. You learn what you can say, what you can talk about, how you get likes, how you get rewards. I've talked all about the dopamine rewards with Twitter and all these social. It was all cooked into the design of these systems, of these control systems. And I have a great video on that. I'll link it in the comment section. I'll link it in the description. And again, I know you guys know what I'm talking about because I've talked about this dealing with Tommy Sotomayor. He's this misogynist. He's this just whatever. I'm not even getting into it. But I've always been blown away that once the mass formation progresses in a lot of these followers, their attention and consideration is so narrow that they're unable to consider truth. They're unable to consider alternative points of view. They can't consider it because of the mass formation psychosis. And no matter how many times, how many hours I've proven, most of the time with his own words and actions, I've proven time and time again that he's a liar, he's a fraud, he's a this, he's a that, he's a this, he's a that, with proof, with his own words in black and white. Yet these people with the psychosis revere him. He can do no wrong. He does no wrong. Even the people that were supposed to be closest to me ended up with mass formation psychosis because they started protecting him from me. And I'm telling you guys something. If this continues to go unchecked, if people don't start to really understand, how deeply this is being controlled, they will support a totalitarian government. Absolutely. They will support a totalitarian government. They will support tyrants. And, all the way back through human history, this has happened time and time again, with the Aztecs standing on top of their pyramids, Goblet Tepe, and all these Aztec huge monuments where the blood would just run down from hundreds of feet like rivers from people being sacrificed. It's mass frenzy. It's mass psychosis. And people, yeah. We're not far away from that. And when they're finally ready to pull the drain, see, because the slow burn is it's still happening. Like I said, the buildings are shaking. One of my last videos, I said the buildings are shaking. They are crumbling now. It's crumbling all around us. They've not fallen yet, but it's crumbling all around us. Nobody can make informed decisions because opposing views are being silenced. Like this video, I have no idea if anybody's going to hear this or not. I have no clue. It's happened before. It's happened many times to Covert Radio. We're being inundated with a narrow view. And once this continues and it's left unabated and nobody listen, if this keeps going, there will be tyranny. There absolutely will be atrocities, unthinkable atrocities, exactly like the Nazis did. which was not that long ago. Prior to any of this happening, I said I've said this years ago. 60, 70 years was not that long ago. There are still people alive who were involved directly in the Nazi regime, the Third Reich. It wasn't that long ago that there were unthinkable atrocities. And really, it was a form of compliance. The only way to fix this is to allow dissenting voices. That's why they're attacking it. That's why they've taken control over all the avenues of public voices, a public means to speak. You can go out and talk to anybody you want on the street right now until lockdown's there. And then, you're like, what country is it right now? I think it's, I just saw this. It is Canada. It is in Canada. It's, they have a 10 o'clock curfew. If you're caught on the street between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., you'll be fined $3,000 to $6,000. Look it up if you don't believe me. I think it's Ontario. Ontario curfew, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. $6,000, $5,000 fine. And even if you're out walking your dog, one day they say, yeah, that's the exception. Then the next day, you're like, no, that's not going to happen. Nothing is being solved. Do you understand that? Nothing is being solved. This guy on the screen talks about hospitals filling up or whatever, but from what I've learned and saw with my own eyes, a lot of these people should not be sick right now, right? Oh, it's because of you that they're sick. Not because they've done what they were told this whole time and they're still getting sick. Not because of that. Again, this happened not too long ago. Mass formation psychosis absolutely ran rampant in Germany once the 40s came around. The German people were smart, they were highly educated, they were basically liberal, and they were just like us. Honestly, they were just like Western thinking people. But they got so crazy because of the narrative and the propaganda that they just allowed to happen what happened. Mainstream media, socialist media, it's just continuously feeding you more messaging, deeper focus, further hypnotizing, deeper. And now they're moving the chess piece one more time. Because here's what I just proven to you that Trudeau said, and this is a prime element in mass formation psychosis. The people who rebel against the narrative, the people who fight against it, they become your enemy. They become the enemy of the brainwashed population. And then they become the primary target of aggression. Just like on the news has no problem featuring the new Karen of the week, the Karen of the month. Yet you will never see a Kenesha of the month. You will never see that because they have to control the narrative, even though that's not reality, because there's just as many Keneshas as there are Karens on both sides of the fence. But you won't see that because they control the narrative. And then once they show the Karens over and over and over again, the Karens become the enemy of the brainwashed idiots. And then they become the primary target of their aggression. That's what the race war is about. That's what all the race propaganda is about. That's what all of the stuff that's going on in San Francisco where they're just showing hordes of black people running into Nordstrom's and this place and Rite Aids and this. It's all over YouTube, but you won't hardly see it on the news other than to continue this aggression and this hate. And it's also a diversion. It really is a diversion, just like the Reichstag fire was just a diversion to create a political move to arrest hundreds of thousands of political enemies, which were the communists at that point. This is very similar to that. But they need the enemies everywhere. Everybody's an enemy of everybody. You have an enemy. Whether you are doing anything or not, you still have an enemy. That's why I'm telling you, you cannot sit this one out. Because the studies that have been done over this, I'm talking mass psychosis and groupthink and, everything that's in the same vein of mass formation psychosis, every study shows that basically 30% of the people of the population are complete idiot, hypnotized, dolt, brainwashed dummies. They will do whatever they are told. The lemmings that will just run and jump off the cliff. That'll save you. If you go and dive head first off this bridge, that'll save you. Okay, then they will go to the nearest bridge. They will get out and they will take a swan dive head first off the bridge. Then 40% of the population, they're in the middle. They try to listen. They'll hear certain views if they can hear them. They'll listen to anything that's basically plausible. But they are persuadable either way. They can be persuaded either way. And mostly, if there's really no solid alternative, which the people who may have an alternative are not allowed to speak, or they're silenced, just like all the doctors that came together a year or two ago and they stood on Capitol Hill and they were silenced almost immediately. So 30% are jumping off bridges, 40% are in the middle, and then there's another 30% that they fight against the narrative. But like I said, those who fight against it, they become the enemy of the 30 and possibly 40%. The other 60% of people or 70%. They're the enemy. And as you just seen, this is the phase they're at right now by this video here. This is the phase they're at.
The vast majority of Canadians have stepped up, have been there to get themselves vaccinated, to protect their loved ones, to protect frontline health workers. And that is significant. We're amongst the top countries in the world in terms of citizens stepping forward to do the right thing. So it's not just about governments and health workers frustrated that there are Canadians who still continue to choose to not get vaccinated. It's fellow Canadians as well. When people are seeing cancer treatments and elective surgeries put off because beds are filled with people who chose not to get vaccinated.
See, you're an enemy. My grandmother died of cancer because of you. You're the reason. He can't even say this stuff with a straight face. I can't do this to myself. So we're gonna go down this road here just so you see what's happening all the way around. Civil war in the United States is far more likely than you think. In fact, it may have already begun. This was yesterday, January the 5th, 2022. Oh, guess who the targets are? Now they're heavily armed. Jesus. America's heavily armed far-right extremists fit the mold of those who've started insurrections in other countries. We got to get rid of them all. Those people who want to think for themselves, they got to go. They got to go because they're the reason my family member's dying and got the cancer. And they can't get the operation they want because you won't follow orders. Dadgummit. Yeah, they got to put that Southern flag up there to drive the point home. Because that means racist right there. These white people are racist. There ain't no black people there. Of course there was. I mean, this is just I can't even get into this. It's literally all about demonizing people who believe in independence, who want, they want fairness, they want free speech, they want, their arms, they don't want to be disarmed, like they believe in the Constitution. I mean, they're the enemies. And now it's spreading worldwide, according to this person who is Paul Brandis. And then he talks about this professor who's writing another book. Her new book is out next week, and she's at the University of California. Barbara Walter, San Diego. But as an analyst, looking at events in America the same way you'd look at those elsewhere, you'd go down a checklist, assessing each of the conditions that make civil war likely. And you would find that the United States, a democracy founded more than 2 centuries ago, has entered very dangerous territory. Yeah, dangerous territory meaning communists are overthrowing the country, communists are overthrowing the financial system, communists are destroying our system of business ownership. Communists are destroying the laws. Communists are destroying freedom of speech. Communists are destroying the right to bear arms. But you could just see that this old, beliefs of democracy that was founded more than 2 centuries, that's such old think. We've entered a very dangerous territory. Walter knows her stuff. She also serves on a CIA's advisory panel dubbed the Political Instability Task Force, the PITF. They analyze conditions around the world using a predictive model that forecasts which countries may slide into civil war. There have been some 200 civil wars since 1946, she said. The CIA panel isn't allowed to analyze. They're not allowed to analyze the United States itself. But Walter has done it. She's so... my heart's going to explode. Oh, my chest. I can't do it. What's eye-opening here is that when you look at the 200-plus civil wars since 1946 and their root causes, it sounds eerily like America right now. People they have false impressions about what's going on. My television tells me this, and these crazy people believe that. Why would somebody put their life on the line for something that they like? You see what I'm saying? If you weren't fully aware of what was happening and educated, and you know the circumstantial outcome of what's happening, just like Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn, if we would have fought back, if we knew that we had nothing left to lose, if we would have realized that then, hindsight's 2020, we should have used broom handles and pickaxes and hammers and ambushed these people who were coming out with the Stalin's marching orders. We should have fought back. If we knew then what we know now, we didn't have anything to lose. Just like now, we're on a sinking ship and people are psychotically infused with TITANIC syndrome. In my opinion. Do you guys know what totalitarianism actually is? Do you know what the actual definition is? It's a system of government that is centralized by a dictator, a tyrant, and it requires complete subservience to the state, to the regime, to the party. It's a system of government that's centralized by dictators, or a dictator or a tyrant. And you have no other option but to submit to every whim and will of these tyrants. That's what totalitarianism is. Total subservience. Total. And I mean, I don't know, how you, any even like half awake person, if you can't understand that, to make an informed decision, you need to get a lot of different facts, opinion. I mean, that's what science is. That's what science is. Let's just say I'm a doctor, okay? And I have my doctorate, and I know scientists. I mean, we're friends to this day, let's just say. I mean, I know that science is 100% based on free discussion. People exchange ideas. They have different viewpoints. There's discussions that happen. They work on problems. Things come up. They work on problems. They collaborate. This guy's good at trigonometry. This guy's good at, at chemistry. This guy knows the periodic table and, how different gases interact with different elements and the amount of neurons and neutrons and electrons could turn this gas into this is what science is. This is what scientists do. It's 100% based on free, open discussion. Discussion. Work on problems. Work on solutions. Exchange ideas. Talk about it. Get it on the table. That is the only way that there is progression. The only way. That's the only way to move forward. What if you were a cancer research doctor? You're going to continuously just believe one narrow narrative about cancer and where it comes from, and this is exactly how you have to treat it. There's no opposing viewpoints that are acceptable, and if they are, you're going to lose your job. This is how you treat cancer. But there's people dying every day. This is how you treat cancer. I don't want to hear about your research. I don't want to hear about your scientist or your 25 years of your doctoral practice. I don't want to hear about that. This is what you do. You understand me? But that's not working. Do you understand what I'm telling you? There's one single narrative. There's one single point of view. There's one single linear progression, completely controlled by a literal handful of people. What was that movie with, it was like an asteroid movie. Bruce Willis was in it. Liv Tyler was in it. What was it? Armageddon. NASA, they had these NASA scientists. There was this asteroid coming, and it was like the doomsday event. It was going to destroy the Earth. So if you watch this movie, what happens? Basically, in a nutshell, NASA, the scientists, the people that are aware of what's about to happen, they go reaching out all over the world. They're brainstorming. They're coming up with solutions. They're talking. They're sharing ideas. What about this? What about that? Can we try this? Can we try that? What about this? What about that? They didn't get their marching orders from one government agency and says, this is exactly what you're going to do. Like, how do you not understand what's going on? Seriously, how do you not understand what's going on? This isn't about what they're telling you. It's not. They also alerted the citizens of the world what was about to happen and what they were, they kept them informed of what's going on and what they were going to do. But today the exact opposite is people are punished for that. They're excommunicated, they're fired, they're fined, they're shunned. And I'm talking about doctors and scientists that don't see the same data. They don't see the same approach. They have a different idea than those in control. You know, just like the Titanic, the world's elite, it's an unsinkable ship. They're, you know, these are all the elite of Europe. They're living their, in America, they're living their privileged lives. The Titanic was almost like their mansions on land. They had their, you know, their mahogany and their custom this and custom textiles and marble and the finest silverware and glass, and the fireplaces were roaring on the ship, and live music, musicians, live pianists and wind instruments and violinists. And I mean, they had the absolute best of the best food, the best liquor, the best everything. And even though the ship's crew knew what happened, they knew they hit an iceberg, they still kept it quiet until there was zero chance of the circumstances changing. They knew at a certain time there was zero chance to avoid that ship sinking, and thousands of people were going to die. They knew that. They were going to drown, down, sinking. A hypothermic death is unavoidable. They were not told that they're on a sinking ship until it was way too late. Well, Covert Radio, what would that matter? What do you mean, what does it matter? Don't you want to take your own life into your own hands? What if you're an Olympic swimmer? What if you are cold water conditioned? But yet, because nobody told you that the ship is sinking, when you did realize what was happening, by the time you jumped off, you hit one of the boats below you, one of the people, or the suction of the ship, you know, sinking under the ocean pulled you down 700 feet. It's my choice. If I want to jump off that ship right now, that's what I want to do. But without the information, without the crew telling me, hey, we hit an iceberg, this ship's going to sink, so hey. They are shutting our country down. They are going to enslave every person that is hearing my voice. Irreversible biometric totalitarianism. Irreversible biometric totalitarianism. Call it whatever you want. And I actually have a show about that coming up. And it's going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind. I want to show you one last thing. Well, you know what? Let me tell you a story. And then we're done. This is how I know that this is not, that we're on a sinking ship. This is not going to stop. It's over. It's over. And unless you start talking to people and waking more people up and just sharing different perspectives, nothing's going to stop. Nothing's going to change. And believe me, they're all in. You can see what they're doing. You're the enemy. You're the real enemy now. And we're months away from murder. I'm telling you, we're months away from murder. Your whole illusion, your normalcy bias is crumbling all around you. But you're watching Breakfast Club from 1982 or whatever it was. That's what you're doing on your 65-inch Samsung. That's what you're doing. Or you're watching Yellowstone, or you're watching any one of these Roman bread and circus, distraction, hypnotic, mass psychosis lullabies that are putting you deeper into sleep while there is the entire infrastructure is crumbling around you. But I'm looking outside. I don't see nothing crumbling. Then you got to look further. And this is how I know it's happening and what's about to happen. Swear to God, this is a true story. Christmas, couple days before Christmas, I'm shopping. I was getting my wife a laptop, and I'm like, she's not, doesn't really do much. Like, doesn't need Word, doesn't need any Microsoft products, whatever, And eventually, whatever Windows-based system you buy is just a paperweight eventually. It becomes so corrupt and compromised. It's ridiculous. Windows is ridiculous. And anybody who knows a little bit about this stuff, they all know. My computer just running slow. Oh, really? I mean, because there's so many process. I'm not getting into it. Anyway, I'm like, Chromebook. She has an iPad. She has a watch. All that stuff. I'm not getting her a Mac, iMac, or book, or MacBook, or whatever. I personally don't own any Apple products, but that. So I'm like, Chromebook or laptop, Chromebook, laptop, Windows, Google. It doesn't, it's the same loaf of bread, just different ends. So it's like, but Windows, paperweight, she doesn't really need all the bells and whistles of Windows and all that stuff. So I'm getting her a Chromebook, but I want to get one that folds in half and blah, 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 and all that stuff. Okay, so I forget where I was. Obviously, and it happens to me every year. Everything's picked over, Amazon stuff coming to the house every day, whatever. So I find one that I wanted. It was like 300, something like that, 350 or something. And it was nice. It folded in half. It was a Chromebook. It was their favorite color. So I'm like, this is the one I want. It was at Walmart. So the kid comes up to me. He's like, can I help you? I'm like, yeah. It's like, I want this Chromebook. He's like, let me see if I have it. So he's looking around. He gets his keys. He's unlocking this, unlocking. He's like, yeah, I got one right here. I'm like, perfect. Fire it up, dude. So when he rang it up, it was like 370 or something. I'm like, whoa, wait. I have Walmart.com open on my phone. I'm like, here it is right here. It was like $2.99. Yeah, but that's on Walmart.com and this is like in store. I'm like, yeah, so? Yeah, but it's different. I'm like, this is sold by Walmart. See, it says right there, sold by Walmart. I mean, I get it. I know that people can, use the Walmart umbrella to have stores or whatever. This is not one of those scenarios. And to make matters even, listen, I'm going to take you to the Twilight Zone. This kid's, just whatever. Just got back from break, probably smoked a blunt, high as hell, stupid as hell, just doesn't care at all. Stuttering, trying to explain this to me. I'm like, listen, dude, there's nothing you're going to say that's going to make me pay $70 more for this when I'm looking at it right here and I can buy it right now and get it shipped to this store. I can pick it up at this store that I'm at. Here it is right here. Yeah, but it's like, so I said, listen, and then somebody overheard this. They come over, they're trying to explain. I said, no. I want a manager here right now. So they got a manager, and believe me, I'm not that dude, but I was so pissed by this point, and these dumb kids keep trying to, I don't know, I don't even think they understood. So this manager comes over, and he was like, so what's going on? I said, listen, sold by Walmart, can pick it up at this Walmart. There's one in stock. I'm looking at it. It's right there sitting on the table. Why do I have to come back tomorrow to pick up this exact computer or pay $70 more right now to leave with it tonight? Please explain this to me. Here's the truth of the matter. And this is why I know it's all coming down. He told me, he was like, honestly, this isn't the first time. This has been happening a lot, especially this year. He was like, this is what Walmart's doing. They are forcing people to use Walmart.com. They are forcing people to make their purchases on Walmart.com. The other thing, to even back this up further, Do you know that they took all of the price scanners that were on the poles, the structural poles in the middle of Walmart? There was one there, one in automotive, one here, one there, one there, one there. You could grab something, boop, scan it, tells you what the price is. They took them all out. And I knew when they took them all out why they did it. I said in my head, I said, they want you to use the app. They're forcing people to download the app. And now, because every time I'd go to one of the workers, I'd be like, could you tell me the price of this? They'd pull out their own personal phone and they'd scan it and they'd be like, oh yeah, it's da-da-da-da-da. So I'm like, so you're taking all the scanners out because you want, they want people to use the app. Okay, so now you're forcing people to order something through Walmart.com that I'm staring at Walmart.com or at Walmart. And if not, I'm penalized $70. And my mind's just blown. He's like, yeah, they're forcing people to use Walmart.com. I know it doesn't make sense. I know it's crazy. Believe me. And I'm going to take care of this for you. If it was over $100, I'd have a lot of problems. It's like, it's under $100. I'll give it to you right now for the price that I could buy right now. And check out and pay with a credit card or whatever and stand there until they put it and get it ready for me within an hour to pick it up. Or I could come back the next day. Do you understand the psychosis here? Okay. So this is how I know it's all coming down. And I'm thinking to myself later that night, what are the brick and mortar Walmarts going to be for? Why will they exist? Because eventually we're not going to be allowed to go inside of them, just like the Amazon fulfillment centers. You can't know it's not open to the public. Everything is done in the metaverse. Everything is done that's trackable and sellable and it's all traceable. There is not going to be any more Walmarts very, very, very soon. This is happening all across the United States, just like this here. How retailers like Walmart, Macy's, Target, and Nordstrom are keeping stores open as COVID-19 surges. And this is where I'm showing you the gaslighting, okay? Look at this. This is, let's see. Okay, right here, January the 4th, right, there's the date. January the 4th, 2022. And they're telling you, how the Walmart and the Macy's and the Target, they're going to stay open as COVID surges across the U.S. Well, then, a couple days before that, the same website tells you coronavirus or Omicron is reversing New York City's long road to retail recovery. So let's go in order here. This was on December 30th. They're telling you that, all the stores are shutting down again. They're showing Macy's right here. Can you guys see that? Let me look. Yeah, okay. So there's the world's largest store, Macy's, right there. And coronavirus is reversing the city's long road to retail recovery. That was on December 30th. A couple days later, well, Macy's and Walt, now they're staying open as COVID surges. Okay, so that was what? January the 4th. Then, January the 5th, Macy's is closing more stores in 2022. Will your location close? See the list. There is going to be no Macy's in a year or two. Macy's will not exist. Just like Toys R Us does not exist. Just like the malls do not exist. It's all crumbling down. And I'm telling you, just like Walmart will not exist. And it is going to come true. The thing I've been talking about for 5 years, the same guy who owns Walmart was also a member of the military responsible for prisoner camps, for the construction of prisoner camps. I've told you this before. Look it up for yourself. Jim Walton, Joe, whatever his name was. Walt, whatever. I swear to God, the first time I seen a Walmart Supercenter, I'm like, this looks like the county prison. It's almost the same design. The same guy who designed and owns the empire. He's dead now. He was in the military, and his job was camp creation, constant internment, prison, camp creation. Macy's is closing, but one day they tell you, oh, it's all coming down, it's all reversing. Then they tell you everything's great, they're all staying open. 2 days later, and the next day, no, it's closing again. Macy's is closing, just like all this whole time. Wear one, don't wear one. It's stupid to wear one. Wear two, you need four. Don't wear any, you need one. Gaslight, gaslight, gaslight. Mass formation psychosis. Is your Bed Bath & Beyond store closing? See, the store is slated to close by the end of February. This was yesterday, January the 5th. It's all crumbling. It's not crumbling. It's all crumbling. It's crumbling. Guess what? It's crumbling. Please share this information. Cut this up. Do what you can. Become a Patreon. I have tons of unbelievable information coming for you guys in the next few days, or next couple of weeks, I should say. I'm trying to free up some time here. And, we just got to keep spreading. I don't even know if this video is going to get published. I don't. But become a Patreon, support this type of media. And you guys take care. Have a good day.